Wake up at 3 in the morning. You are 11 years old. Your hair is matted with last week's blood from your own earlobes, and your job today is to sweep a temple platform the size of a small village before any commoner in Tenochtitlan opens their eyes. Welcome to your life as an Aztec sacrifice priestess. It is somehow even more intense than that sentence. 6 years old, dedicated. Let us back up. You did not choose this. When you were about 6, your parents walked you through the canals of the floating city, past the Chinampa gardens and the canoes full of dried chilies, all the way to a temple that smelled of copal smoke and old corn. They handed you to a senior priestess in a black soot-painted face, and they told the goddess, "This baby is yours now. Please be kind to her." They were, by Aztec standards, doing you a favor. They had probably already lost siblings of yours to illness. They had probably already buried someone last year. Dedicating you to the gods was a hedge. The gods, the thinking went, would treat their own staff with mercy. You were called ixiptla makask, which translates as woman giver of things to the gods. This is the technical term for what you do, and it sounds a lot more pleasant than the actual workload. Above you are senior priestesses who run the place. Below you, in the same Kamakak school, are even younger initiates also chosen at 6. Beside you are the Saiwapi Pilton, daughters of noble warriors who got dropped off for political reasons rather than spiritual ones. They will outrank you. They will eat better food than you. They will also, statistically, leave earlier to marry a general. For now, though, all of you wear the same plain cotton whipple and sleep on the same mat in the same windowless dormitory. And all of you are about to spend the next decade learning how to bleed politely. School of Thorns. The Kamakak is the elite religious school, and the word means row of houses. Yours sits inside the temple precinct of the goddess Tochi, whose name translates roughly as our grandmother. That sounds gentle. She is not gentle. Tochi is the earth itself, in its devouring mode, the one who eats corpses, also the patron of midwives, also the patron of weavers, also the patron of military victory. Aztec theology liked compression. Your curriculum is brutal in a specific way. You spend hours every day memorizing songs. There are hundreds of them, in Old Nahuatl that is already archaic when you start learning it, and each goddess has her own meter and her own forbidden mistakes. A skipped beat is not a stylistic problem. A skipped beat is a theological failure that can, depending on which priestess catches it, get you slapped or get you fasted for 3 days, or get you praying through the night until you stop making it. You learn the tonal Pawali, the 260-day sacred calendar, and the Xiu Pawali, the 365-day solar calendar, and you learn how the two of them interlock to produce a 52-year cycle that the cosmos uses to measure whether it is allowed to keep existing. If those two calendars desynchronize, in the official version, the universe ends. You, an 11-year-old, are partially responsible for making sure that does not happen. You learn to weave. The loom is treated as a model of the universe. Every cloth you finish is, in some real sense, the universe in miniature, and the priests who consecrate it are not being metaphorical when they call it a sacred object. The Chalchihuitl pattern, made of overlapping diamond shapes meant to represent precious stones, can take 3 months on a single tunic. And you learn the thorns. The maguey plant grows in any patch of sun you can find in central Mexico, and its spines come pre-sharpened. Around age 10, you are taught the auto-sacrifice ritual, which is the polite term for piercing your own earlobes, your own tongue, sometimes your own calves, with a maguey thorn, letting the blood drip onto thin sheets of bark paper, and then burning the paper as an offering. It is called ixiptla, the debt payment, because Aztec theology runs on a debt model. The gods made the world by spilling their blood. You owe them yours back, forever. With interest, you will do this several times a week for the rest of your life. By your late teens, your hair, which is never washed, will be visibly stiffened with rust-colored streaks. Your tongue, which has been pierced many times, will be permanently scarred. Spaniards who arrive in 1519 are going to write home that you and your colleagues resemble demons. The Spaniards are going to be incorrect about a lot of things. In between the songs and the calendar and the bleeding, you will also learn divination. You will be trained to read the patterns of corn kernels thrown onto a folded cloth, to interpret the meaning of dreams that your initiates report back to you, to identify which day of the tonal Pawali a sick child was born on, and what that means for the kind of prayer required. You will memorize the appropriate name for every ailment, and which goddess has the franchise rights to fix it. By the time you are 15, you have absorbed the kind of information that, in a different civilization, would require a doctorate and 3 years of postdoc work. You also still have to sweep at 3 in the morning. Sweep, bleed, repeat. A normal day, you wake at 3, you sweep. The broom is a sacred tool called a dialect poaloni, and the act of sweeping is itself an offering to the goddesses of dirt and purification, especially Tosi, and her partner deity Tlazolteotl, whose name translates as filth eater, and who is exactly as glamorous as that title implies. Tlazolteotl is the goddess in charge of forgiving sexual transgressions, eating moral garbage, and dealing with menstruation and childbirth, which are categorized in Aztec thought as kinds of holy filth that need a specialist deity to handle. You are sweeping at 3 in the morning because Tlazolteotl is hungry. After sweeping, you sing dawn prayers facing east, sometimes drawing your own blood again, and then you eat a bowl of plain corn gruel with water, no salt, no kili, no pulque, which is the fermented maguey drink that everyone else in the city is using to start their day. You will not taste salt or chili for years at a time, depending on which festival cycle you are inside. The fasting is not a personal choice. It is the operating manual. You spend the morning at a loom or preparing copal incense, or studying the calendar or training the younger girls. Midday, you might eat once more, or you might not, depending on the season. Afternoon, you sweep again. Evening, you sing more songs, light the temple fires that are not allowed to ever go out, and observe the stars to confirm the cosmos is still on schedule. At midnight, you wake up to pray. This is called Huitzli, the thorn hour, and at Huitzli you stand barefoot on cold stone. You draw blood again, and the temple is silent except for somebody else somewhere in the city doing the same thing. This is your normal. Now we should talk about the special occasions. Goddesses, pick your boss. There are many goddesses in the Aztec pantheon, and you might end up assigned to any of them. Your specific assignment shapes the rest of your life in ways that range from inconvenient to medically catastrophic. If you serve Cotlicu, whose name translates as serpent skirt, you tend the shrine of the mother of all Aztec gods, the one who got impregnated by a ball of feathers and gave birth to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the patron deity of Tenochtitlan itself. Cotlicu's statue still exists. You can go look at her in the National Anthropology Museum in Mexico City right now. She has serpents for a head, serpents for a skirt, and a necklace of severed hands and hearts. Her vibe is on theme. If you serve Chicomico Adl, whose name translates as Seven Serpent, you are tending the corn goddess, and your work is gentler. You memorize harvest songs. You manage the maize stores. Once a year, in April, you assist the great vigil for planting season, which we will get back to. If you serve Xochiquetzal, precious flower, you maintain literal gardens in the temple precinct. You weave the most beautiful textiles in the city. You are also, awkwardly, the patron deity of the anime, the women who entertain warriors at official festivals, and whose relationship to the sacred is what scholars politely call ambiguous. Your office party is genuinely fun. Your morality looks complicated to the Spaniards. If you serve Tlazolteotl, the filth eater we already met, you become the local equivalent of a priest who hears confession. People come to you with sexual transgressions, and you absolve them, on the understanding that you can only do this once per lifetime per customer. It is, structurally, the most generous and the most terrifying clergy gig in town. And if you serve Maya well, the 400-breasted goddess of the maguey plant from whom pulque is made, you manage the production of ritual fermented drink. You are also, occasionally, the only sober person at the festival, which is its own kind of religious experience, becoming the goddess. We need to talk about the ixiptla. This is the Nahuatl word for representative or image, and in this context, it refers to a person who literally becomes a god or goddess on earth for a defined period, usually a year, until that god or goddess needs to be sent back to the spirit world. Sent back, in this context, means game overed in front of an audience. You might not be selected to be an ixiptla. Most priestesses are not, but you might be in charge of preparing one, which is psychologically its own kind of ride. The Tosi ixiptla is the most documented case in Sahagun's Florentine Codex. Some months before the festival of Ochpaniztli, a young woman, probably late teens to early 20s, often a commoner, is chosen. From that moment, by official definition, she is the goddess Tochi on earth. She wears Tochi's robes, eats Tochi's food, sleeps in Tochi's bed, and receives the offerings the city is making to Tochi, because she is Tochi. The fact that she also still has the brain of an 18-year-old farm girl from a neighborhood across the lake is, in the official version, beside the point. You feed her. You wash her. You sing her to sleep. You bring her flowers. You explain her duties to her in the divine voice. You, specifically, are responsible for making sure she does not panic. The Aztec sources hint at sedation, possibly with morning glory seeds or psilocybin mushrooms or datura, possibly with rotation of all three depending on the day. The drugs are not a perk, they are inventory. The same job exists for the Chicomecoatl ixiptla, the corn goddess representative, who is usually a younger girl, dressed in yellow and white, paraded through the city with corn stalks in her arms during Huitzilopochtli in April. Her end is also game overed, but the choreography is different. She is decapitated rather than disassembled, and her blood is given to the earth so that next year's corn knows where to come up. Different goddess, different ceremony, same outcome. Festival of the Broom. Ochpaniztli is the great sweeping festival, the 11th month of the calendar, falling roughly in late August into September, right before the harvest. The word means the sweeping and refers both to the literal cleaning of every temple in the city and to the cosmic sweeping away of the old agricultural year. For an Aztec priestess, this is the Super Bowl of the year. It is what your training has been pointing at. For weeks beforehand you fast. You do not eat salt. You barely eat at all. You bathe in cold water before sunrise. You draw your own blood every 12 hours. You teach the Tochi ixiptla her steps. You weave the white embroidered huipil she will wear when she becomes the goddess in front of the city. You do not sleep, because the schedule does not allow sleep. On the night of the ceremony itself, you join a procession that moves by torchlight across the precinct. You sing the specific songs of Toshi, in an old Nahuatl meter that you have practiced for 10 years. The ixiptla, in her finished regalia, moves at the center of the group. She is, at this moment, the goddess. The senior priests do their work at the technocali, the stone of the gods. We will not film it in detail. The historical version involves a ceremonial spatula carved from black volcanic glass, an offering held up toward the sky, and the kind of red confetti that produces vivid Spanish memoirs. What happens after is, somehow, even stranger. A priest puts on the ixiptla's flayed ceremonial garment and dances through the streets of Tenochtitlan in it, and you and the other priestesses follow, singing, sprinkling cornmeal, throwing shouts and rattles. The earth has shed her skin, and the corn has been called up for next year. You are exhausted. You will sleep for 2 days. The crops grow on schedule. Everyone agrees the ceremony was correct. Twin pyramid, twin gods. The Templo Mayor sits at the center of Tenochtitlan and at the center of your life. It is officially called Teocalli, the Great House of the Gods, and it is a stepped pyramid roughly 50 meters tall with 2 shrines at the top, dedicated to 2 gods who hate each other in theory but share a roof in practice. On the south side, Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, god of war and patron of the Aztec state. On the north side, Tlaloc, god of rain, war and water, the 2 things you need to keep the city alive. The pyramid is rebuilt and enlarged every few decades, with each emperor adding another shell of stone on top of the previous one. The result is an architectural onion of escalating ambition. By the time the Spanish show up, there are at least 7 layers. The most ambitious rebuild happened in 1487 under the Emperor Ahuitzotl, who, depending on which Spanish source you believe, sacrificed somewhere between 4,000 and 80,000 people over 4 days at the rededication. Modern historians lean toward the lower end of that range, and they also note that Spanish chroniclers had every motive in the world to inflate the number. Either way, the rededication was, by historical standards, an event. You, as a priestess, do not work on the topmost shrines. The actual sacrificial duties at the technicali belong to specialized priests called ixtlapilk, who train for years on the specific technique. Your job is the temple precinct around the base, the side shrines, the smaller chambers, the women's processions, the songs, the body of the ceremony. The Spanish are going to assume that all priests do everything, and that all rituals involve heart offerings, because the Spanish are going to be running on adrenaline and bad translation for most of 1519. In 2015, archaeologists, led by Eduardo Matos Moctezuma, found at Ochpaniztli, a skull rack, beneath what is now downtown Mexico City. The bones are real. The rack held around 650 skulls when they found it, though the original probably held several thousand. The discovery confirms that the scale was real, while also confirming that the Spaniards were lying about the headline number. Both things, somehow, are true at once. When you pass the Ochpaniztli on your way to your duties, which you do most days, the skulls look back at you with no particular meaning. They are not warnings. They are not threats. They are receipts. Aztec theology runs on debt, and the Ochpaniztli is the city's accounts ledger, posted publicly, updated regularly. Each skull is, in the local way of thinking, a debt that was paid forward by someone in service of keeping the sun on its schedule. You were trained to read the rack as a kind of religious calendar, where each skull marked a moment that the universe got fed. None of that translates into Spanish. Soot, salt, blood. Let us talk about how you actually look and feel inside this body, day to day. Your face is painted with soot and ochre. The pattern depends on which goddess you serve. The black is not decoration. It is a marker of your debt to the gods through auto-sacrifice. The Spanish will write that you look terrifying. From the inside, you are just someone wearing a uniform. Your hair is long and never cut. It is also rarely washed, because washing it would mean removing the rust-colored evidence of your devotion. You have small punctures in your earlobes, healing in stages, dating back to when you were 10 years old. Your tongue has been pierced many times. You have small scars on your calves. Your diet is corn, beans, occasionally squash, sometimes amaranth tamales, as offerings that you then eat after the gods have had a turn. No salt for weeks at a time. No chili for stretches that feel cruel in central Mexico, where the cuisine pivots on chili. No meat, except for the rare ceremonial meal during the biggest festivals. Pulque is forbidden to you most of the time, although certain festivals require you to drink it, and you will be told exactly when. You sleep on a woven mat. You own 2 huipils. You own 1 ceremonial exicoli for special occasions. You own a small jade earring you were given at your final vows. You own the maguey thorns. You do not own anything else because there is nothing else you need. You are, at the same time, one of the most educated people in the entire empire. You read pictographs. You know astronomy. You can compose a song in the meter of an extinct dialect. You can name 260 days of the sacred calendar and the goddess attached to each. If you survive, and many priestesses do, you will retire eventually with the kind of authority that lets you walk through the city without ever being questioned by anyone. You also know things nobody outside the temple knows. You know which herbs reduce a fever, and which ones induce labor, and which ones can quietly end a pregnancy that is going to end the mother. You know how to set a bone. You know which constellations are visible right before a drought year. You know how to talk a panicking new mother through a difficult birth, and you know what to whisper into the ear of a dying soldier when the family asks for last rites. You are, in the language of a much later century, a midwife, a doctor, a therapist, a calendar, a librarian, and a chaplain, all in one person, all before the age of 25. You also still smell like copal smoke and dried blood, which is, by Aztec standards, the smell of competence. Warrior of the cradle. The single most important Aztec idea that you are walking around with is this: a woman who game overs during childbirth is a warrior. She is the female equivalent of the man who game overs in battle. Both are honored equally. Both join the journey of the sun. Male warriors who fall in combat join the sun's procession from sunrise to noon, going east to overhead. Women who fall in childbirth join the sun's procession from noon to sunset, going overhead to west. The afterlife is, in this sense, completely gender symmetric, and the cosmos is split in half, and both halves are held up by Aztec bodies. This shapes everything about how you understand your life. Childbirth is not a domestic event, it is military service. The midwives, the ixiptla, are not just medical professionals, they are religious officials, trained in the Calmacac alongside you, and they invoke Tochi and Chicomeco Adal during the labor itself. The Sihuateteo, the spirits of women who graduated by way of the cradle, are warriors with their own honored shrines on the western edges of the city. People bring them offerings the same way they bring offerings to fallen soldiers. If you choose to leave temple service at 20 or 25, which many priestesses do, you can marry. Your years of religious training make you, on paper, an excellent bride. You are literate, you are disciplined, you can teach your future daughters everything you learn. If you stay in temple service for life, you live as a senior ixiptla macask, and at some point you take final vows of celibacy and authority, and you train the next round of 6-year-olds the way your senior priestesses once trained you. Either way, the cosmos expects you to be one of two kinds of warrior, the kind in the temple, or the kind in the birthing room. Either one earns you a place in the sun's daily journey when you reach the end. August of 1521. In the spring of 1519, a Spanish expedition under Hernán Cortés lands on the coast of what is now Veracruz. They begin moving inland. They make alliances with the Tlaxcalans, who have been at war with the Aztecs for generations, and who are extremely ready to join an outside team against Tenochtitlan. They reach the city in November. The Emperor Moctezuma II receives them. Then everything begins to go wrong in a way that none of your songs prepared you for. In May of 1520, during the festival of Toxcatl, while Cortés is away dealing with rival Spaniards on the coast, his deputy Pedro de Alvarado orders Spanish soldiers to massacre the Aztec nobles and priests who have gathered for the ceremony. Hundreds of people are game overed in the precinct of the Templo Mayor itself. The dead include musicians, dancers, priests in mid-prayer, and possibly priestesses, your colleagues, people you trained with, people who slept on the next mat over from yours when you were 9 years old. A year later, after a brutal siege that introduces smallpox to a city whose immune systems have no prior negotiation with European pathogens, on August 13th, 1521, Tenochtitlan falls. The siege itself was a coordinated assault by Cortés, his remaining Spanish soldiers, and tens of thousands of Tlaxcalan warriors, plus a famine inside the walls, plus disease. Estimates of how many people died in those 10 weeks vary by source. The lowest credible estimate is 100,000. The highest is 3 times that. The Spanish destroy the Templo Mayor. They smash the goddess statues. They burn the Calmacac records. They use the stones of the pyramid to build a cathedral that still stands at the center of Mexico City today. If you are still alive at that point, you are either captured, hidden in the countryside, baptized by force, or already gone. The formal priesthood is over within 50 years. But not everything ends. The goddess Tochi does not disappear. She is identified, slowly, with the Virgin Mary, and eventually with the Virgin of Guadalupe, whose shrine sits on a hill north of Mexico City that was, in your lifetime, a shrine to Tonantzin, the mother goddess associated with Tosi. Modern Mexican Catholic practice is full of fragments of what you spent your life maintaining. Dia de los Muertos. Marigolds at the altars. The ritual sweeping, the midwives still invoking older names under their breath. The maguey thorn is gone, but the discipline of debt payment is still there, just rewritten. You are a sacrifice priestess in a city that no longer exists, in a religion that was officially deleted, serving goddesses whose images survived by hiding inside the iconography of a different one. The calendar got swapped out, the songs got banned, the copal smoke is still rising. The next priestess is 6 years old, somewhere, sweeping a courtyard before sunrise, and she does not know yet whose grandmother she belongs to.